I love you. But if we have kids, I'd prefer they have my ex's genes. He's just more attractive. She said it while planning our wedding, smiling, like it was practical. I said, sounds logical. Then I canceled everything while she tried on her dress. My name is Joel Ashford, and I fix things for a living. Broken boilers, faulty wiring, clogged drains, leaky faucets. I'm the building maintenance coordinator for a riverfront loft complex in the industrial district. 300 units, 6 floors, 1 elevator that breaks down every other week. It's not glamorous work, but I'm good at it. And there's something satisfying about solving problems that have clear solutions. Turn the wrench. Replace the part. Problem solved. I wish relationships worked the same way. Meredith Cole was the kind of woman who made you believe in luck. The first time I saw her, she was standing in the lobby of my building, arguing with the doorman about a package that had been delivered to the wrong unit. She was wearing a gray dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and her hair was pulled back in a way that made her look like she belonged in a magazine. She was furious about the package, but even her anger was elegant. I offered to help track it down. Building maintenance has access to the delivery logs. It took me 10 minutes to find her package and bring it to her door. She thanked me with a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. That was 2 years ago. We'd been engaged for 14 months. The proposal happened on a rooftop bar downtown, the Overlook, where my brother Dominic works. I'd planned it for weeks, rented out a corner section, arranged for champagne, even hired a violinist, which felt ridiculous, but Meredith loved that kind of thing. Grand gestures, public displays, the performance of romance. She said yes before I finished asking, cried, laughed, posted the whole thing on Instagram within 15 minutes, 300 likes before we even left the bar. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. 14 months later, I was sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by wedding brochures that spread across the surface like a second job. Venues, flowers, caterers, seating charts, guest lists organized by relationship category. Her family, my family, mutual friends, work colleagues, people we had to invite for political reasons. Meredith had color-coded tabs. I didn't know tabs could be color-coded. I learned something new every day with her. She was excited that night, talking fast, bouncing from topic to topic, showing me photos of dresses she'd narrowed down to 3 finalists. Her energy was infectious, even when I was exhausted from a 12-hour shift dealing with a burst pipe on the 4th floor. I was tired, but I was happy, because I thought we were building something real. The kitchen smelled like the Thai takeout we'd ordered, her favorite green curry with extra basil. Our plates were pushed aside to make room for the brochures. Jazz played softly from the speaker in the corner, something she'd put on to set the mood for wedding planning. It felt domestic, comfortable, like a preview of the next 50 years. Then she said it, not in anger, not during a fight, not even as a complaint. She said it the way people confess a preference about paint color. Casually, thoughtfully, like she was sharing an insight she'd been mulling over and finally felt ready to articulate. I love you, she said, flipping through a brochure about floral arrangements. But if we ever have kids, I'd prefer they have my ex's genes. I looked up from the seating chart I'd been pretending to understand. What? She glanced at me with a small smile, like she was about to explain something obvious to someone who was a little slow. Trent, my ex. I mean, genetically speaking, he's just more attractive. Better bone structure, height, the whole package. She shrugged, still smiling. It's not personal, it's just practical. If we're going to have kids, wouldn't you want them to have the best possible genes? I stared at her. I waited for her to correct herself, to laugh and say she was joking, to realize what she'd just done and scramble to take it back. But she kept talking. It doesn't mean anything, she said, turning back to the brochures. I'm just being realistic. You know I love you. This is about genetics, not feelings. They're separate things. She said it like love and respect were different rooms in the same house, like you could walk out of one and into the other without any consequences. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, exactly. Something quieter, colder, like a door closing. Besides, she continued, oblivious, Trent and I are ancient history. This is just a hypothetical. If we could choose, like designer babies or whatever. I'm just saying, objectively, his genes are better. Objectively, his genes are better. I replayed the words in my head, trying to find an interpretation that didn't make me feel like I'd been punched in the chest. Maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. Maybe this was some weird joke I wasn't getting. Maybe I was overreacting, but I wasn't overreacting. I knew what I'd heard, and I knew what it meant. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as comfort, safety, the stable plan she could decorate while still worshiping someone else. I was the backup option she'd settled for because the first choice didn't work out. And now, Sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by the wreckage of our wedding plans, she was telling me, casually, practically, without a trace of awareness, that she wished our children would look like him instead of me. I put down the seating chart. Sounds logical, I said. My voice was calm, flat. Because the decision had already been made inside me. I just hadn't announced it yet. Meredith looked up, surprised by something in my tone. You're not upset, are you? I didn't mean it like, no, I said. I understand. Genetics. Practical considerations. Makes sense. She studied my face for a moment, looking for signs of trouble. I gave her nothing. I'd learned a long time ago how to keep my expression neutral when I needed to. Growing up with a father who swung between moods like a pendulum teaches you that skill early. Okay, she said slowly. Good. I just wanted to be honest with you. Communication is important, right? Right. She smiled, relieved, and went back to her brochures. Within minutes, she was asking me about centerpiece options, tall arrangements or low ones, as if the previous conversation had never happened. I said tall. I didn't care. I was already somewhere else. That night, after Meredith fell asleep, I got out of bed and went to the living room. The apartment was dark except for the city lights filtering through the windows. I could hear her breathing in the bedroom, slow and even. Peaceful. She had no idea what was coming. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen for a long time. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months from now. The venue was booked. The deposits were paid. The invitations had been sent. Her parents were flying in from Florida. My brother had already requested time off work. Everything was in motion, and I was about to stop all of it. I thought about what she'd said, about Trent, about jeans, about the way she'd framed it as a practical consideration, like she was choosing a car with better fuel efficiency. I thought about the last 14 months, the engagement photos, the cake tastings, the hours I'd spent researching honeymoon destinations because she wanted somewhere Instagram-worthy, all of it building toward a future with someone who, apparently, wished I was someone else. I couldn't do it. I refused to sign a contract with someone who spoke about me like I was the backup option. I refused to stand at an altar and promise forever to a woman who was already imagining our children with another man's face. Some decisions make themselves. This was one of them. I started with the venue, pulled up the email confirmation, found the cancellation policy. 48 hours notice for a full refund on the remaining balance. We'd lose the initial deposit, but I didn't care. I typed out a brief message explaining that the wedding was postponed indefinitely due to unforeseen circumstances. Hit send, next, the photographer. Same process, apologetic but firm, postponed indefinitely. Sorry for any inconvenience, the caterer, the florist, the DJ, the rental company for the tables and chairs. One by one, I dismantled the infrastructure of our wedding like I was decommissioning a building, then the guests. Meredith had insisted on a shared email account for wedding communications. So we're on the same page, she'd said. I thought it was a sign of partnership. Now I realized it was just another way for her to maintain control. I composed a message to the entire guest list, kept it simple. Dear friends and family, we regret to inform you that the wedding of Joel Ashford and Meredith Cole has been postponed indefinitely. We apologize for any inconvenience and appreciate your understanding during this time. I stared at the words for a long moment. Then I hit send. By 3 a.m, I had canceled everything I could access. The venue, the vendors, the guests. The only things left were the details Meredith had handled personally. Her dress, her bridesmaids, her mother's specific requests about the rehearsal dinner, those she would discover on her own. I closed my laptop and walked around the apartment, looking at all the small pieces of her life that had accumulated in my space over the past 2 years. Her books on the shelf, her throw pillows on the couch, her fancy coffee maker that I never used because I couldn't figure out the settings, her slippers by the door, 6 pairs, inexplicably, as if she needed options for walking from the bedroom to the bathroom. I found some boxes in the storage closet and started packing. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it because I refused to pretend anymore. Every item I placed in a box was a small act of honesty. This doesn't belong here. This was never real. This was always conditional. By the time the sun came up, I had 3 boxes stacked by the front door. Her clothes from the closet, her toiletries from the bathroom, the wedding planning materials that had taken over the kitchen table. I left the engagement ring on top. She'd want that back. Meredith woke up around 8. I heard her stirring in the bedroom, the soft sounds of her morning routine. She didn't notice the boxes at first. She went straight to the her coffee maker, and started brewing a cup. Then she saw the kitchen table. It was empty. All the brochures, the seating charts, the color-coded tabs, gone. Joel? Her voice was confused but not alarmed. Not yet. Where's all the wedding stuff? I was sitting on the couch, dressed for work. I'd been waiting for this moment. Packed, I said. Packed? What do you mean packed? She walked into the living room and saw the boxes by the door. Her face cycled through emotions, confusion, concern, the beginning of fear. Joel, what's going on? Why are my things in boxes? I canceled the wedding, I said. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. She stared at me, uncomprehending. You what? What? The venue. The vendors. The guests. I sent an email last night. The wedding is postponed indefinitely. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Her face went pale, then red. She grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter and started scrolling through her emails with frantic fingers. I watched her expression change as she found the cancellation confirmations. The venue's apologetic response, the caterer's acknowledgement, the stunned replies from guests. You can't do this, she said. You can't just... This is insane. Joel, our wedding is in 3 months. My parents already have their flights. My dress is almost ready. You can't just cancel everything because... She stopped, looked at me. Because of what I said last night? About the jeans thing? Yes. That's crazy. I was just being honest. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said. My voice was still calm. I'd had all night to process this. I was past the anger, past the hurt. I was in the clear, cold space on the other side. You told me you'd prefer our children to have your ex's genes because he's more attractive. You said it was practical, realistic, just genetics. It was a hypothetical. It was the truth. And the truth is, I'm not going to marry someone who thinks I'm the backup option. You're not the backup option. I love you. You love what I represent. Safety, stability, someone who won't leave. But you don't want me. Not really. You want him with my reliability. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. I watched her recalculate, search for a new angle. Meredith was always strategic. Even in crisis, she was thinking 3 moves ahead. Okay, she said, her voice shifting to something softer, more vulnerable. Okay, I hear you. What I said was hurtful, and I'm sorry. But this is a huge overreaction. We can talk about this. Go to couples counseling. Work through it. You don't throw away 2 years over one stupid comment. It wasn't one stupid comment. It was the truth you've been hiding, and I'd rather know it now than find out 10 years from now when we have kids who don't look like me and you're already out the door. That's not fair. Neither is what you said. We stared at each other across the living room. 2 years of relationship, 14 months of engagement, all of it hanging in the space between us like smoke. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it reflexively, a text from her mother, probably, asking about the email. She silenced it. I have my final dress fitting today, she said quietly. It's at 2 o'clock. I've been looking forward to it for weeks. I know. You canceled everything the night before my final fitting. I know. She shook her head slowly. Tears were forming in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were from hurt or frustration or the simple shock of having her plans upended. I don't understand you, she said. I thought you were the one person who would never do something like this. You were supposed to be safe. I was, until you told me I wasn't enough. She stared at me for another long moment. Then she picked up her purse and walked toward the door. I'm going to the fitting, she said. When I get back, we're going to fix this, all of it. The venue, the caterer, everything. We'll explain it was a misunderstanding. Cold feet. We can still make this work. I didn't respond. She opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and turned back. I love you, Joel. I know I said something stupid, but I love you. I watched her walk away, and I felt nothing, which was the worst part. I should have felt something, anger, sadness, regret. But there was only emptiness, the hollow space where hope used to live. The door closed behind her. Her footsteps faded down the hallway. The elevator chimed. I sat on the couch and stared at the boxes by the door. 3 boxes, 6 pairs of slippers, 1 engagement ring. This was what 2 years looked like when it was over. A few containers and an empty apartment, and the long silence of the morning. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Dominic. Heard the news? You okay? Word traveled fast in this city. Someone had probably forwarded him the guest email. Or maybe the venue had called. Dominic knew people everywhere. I typed back, I'm fine. Tell you about it later. His response was immediate. Drinks tonight. On me. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I wanted drinks. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore except for this to be over. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because at 2 o'clock that afternoon, while Meredith was standing in a bridal boutique wearing a dress she would never use, her phone would ring, and the carefully constructed world she thought she controlled would start falling apart, and she would finally understand that I meant every word. The hours after Meredith left felt strange, suspended, like the moment between lightning and thunder when you're counting seconds to see how close the storm is. I didn't go to work. Called in sick for the first time in 2 years. My supervisor, a guy named Phil, who'd seen me show up with a fever and a broken finger on separate occasions, asked if I was dying. I told him it was personal. He didn't push. I spent the morning cleaning. Not because the apartment was dirty, but because I needed something to do with my hands. I wiped down counters that were already clean. I organized tools that were already organized. I vacuumed the same carpet twice. The boxes by the door sat untouched. Meredith's things, waiting. Around noon, I made a sandwich I didn't eat, turned on the television and stared at it without processing anything. The news anchor was talking about something political. I changed the channel, a cooking show, changed it again, a home renovation program where people pretended to be surprised by the results. I turned it off. My phone was quiet. Too quiet. No messages from Meredith. No calls. She was at her fitting, probably surrounded by her mother and bridesmaids, trying on a dress that cost more than my first car. They were probably drinking champagne and taking photos and talking about the big day. I wondered if she'd told them yet, about the email, about the cancellations, or if she was still in denial, still believing this was something she could fix. At 1:30, I got a text from an unknown number. Just a photo, Meredith's mother's Instagram story. A champagne glass raised in a bridal boutique. The caption, "Final fitting for my beautiful girl. 3 months to go." Someone was keeping me informed. I didn't know who, and I didn't respond. But I saved the screenshot. At 2:15, my phone rang. Meredith. I let it ring twice, then answered. Joel. Her voice was bright, excited. She hadn't found out yet. I just finished the fitting. The dress is perfect, like actually perfect. The alterations came out amazing. You're going to die when you see it. I didn't say anything. Joel, are you there? I'm here. Okay, you sound weird. Listen, I was thinking we could have dinner tonight and talk about everything. I know this morning was intense, but I really think we can work through it. My mom is already calming down about the email. I told her it was a technical glitch, some kind of spam thing, and she believed it. We can just send a follow-up explaining. There's no follow-up. Silence on the other end. I heard the ambient noise of the boutique, women's voices, soft music, the rustle of fabric. What do you mean? I mean the wedding is canceled, not postponed, canceled. I meant what I said this morning. Joel, that's not... You can't just... Her voice was rising, losing its composure. Hold on. Let me go somewhere private. I heard movement, a door closing, then silence. Okay, she said, her voice lower now. I'm in the bathroom. What the hell is happening? Are you having some kind of breakdown? No, I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. This isn't clear. This is insane. You're throwing away our entire future because of one comment about genetics? That's not rational. It's completely rational. You told me you'd prefer our children to have another man's genes. You said it casually, like you were discussing wallpaper samples. That's not a comment. That's a confession. A confession of what? That you settled. That I'm the safe choice, not the right choice. That you're marrying me because I'm reliable, not because you actually want me. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you looked at me the way you talked about Trent last night? When's the last time you described me as having the whole package? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. Joel, please. Her voice cracked. For the first time, I heard genuine desperation. I love you. I know I said something stupid, but I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? It counts, but it's not enough. What do you want from me? An apology? I'll apologize. I'll apologize 1,000 times. I'll go to therapy. Whatever you need. What I need is a partner who doesn't secretly wish I was someone else. You can't give me that because you don't feel it. And I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to be good enough for someone who already decided I'm not. She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing, the wet catches between words. So that's it? We're just done? We're done. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. There was a long pause. I could almost hear her thinking, strategizing, looking for leverage. Meredith always had an angle. Even in tears, she was calculating. What about the deposits? She asked finally. The venue, the caterers, we're going to lose thousands of dollars. I know. And the guests? Everyone already knows about this. My parents are mortified. Your father will recover. He's survived worse than his daughter's broken engagement. You don't understand. This is going to follow me. At work, at family events, everywhere. People are going to ask what happened and what am I supposed to say. Tell them the truth. Tell them you told your fiancé that you wished your children had another man's genes and he decided he deserved better. I can't. She was spiraling now, her composure completely gone. Joel, please. I'm standing in a bathroom in my wedding dress. My mother is outside. My bridesmaids are waiting. Please don't do this to me. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something soften inside me. The image of her standing alone in a bathroom, wearing a dress she would never walk down the aisle in, was genuinely painful. She wasn't a monster. She was just someone who had revealed a truth she should have kept hidden. But softening wasn't the same as changing my mind. Go have beautiful kids with someone else, I said. The words came out quiet, final, exactly how I'd intended them. I heard her sharp intake of breath, the shock of hearing her own logic reflected back at her. Joel. I hung up, then I turned off my phone. The apartment was silent, just me and the boxes and the afternoon light streaming through the windows. I stood in the middle of the living room, breathing slowly, waiting for the regret to hit. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity, like a fog lifting, like seeing the road clearly after driving through rain. I had spent 14 months planning a life with someone who didn't fully want me, someone who smiled at my proposals while privately ranking me against her ex, someone who saw our future children as a genetic lottery that I was losing, and now it was over. I should have felt devastated. I should have been drinking myself into oblivion or calling friends to talk through my feelings or doing whatever normal people do when their engagement falls apart. Instead, I went back to cleaning. There was something wrong with me. I knew that. Some part of me was broken or missing, some emotional circuit that should have been firing. But I couldn't find it, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Around 4 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Meredith's mother, Patricia, standing in the hallway. She was a handsome woman in her late 50s, always perfectly dressed, always perfectly poised. Right now, she looked like she'd been crying. Joel. Her voice was controlled, but barely. We need to talk. No, we don't. My daughter is devastated. She's been locked in that bathroom for an hour. The boutique staff had to call me to come get her. I'm sorry to hear that. You're sorry? Patricia's composure cracked. You cancel your wedding via email. You leave my daughter sobbing in a bathroom on what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life, and you're sorry. What would you like me to say? I'd like you to explain yourself. I'd like to understand why a grown man would do something so cruel. I considered my options. I could tell her the truth, what Meredith said, what it meant, why I couldn't ignore it. But Patricia wouldn't believe me, or if she believed me, she'd minimize it. She'd say Meredith was just nervous, just talking, didn't mean it. She'd find a way to make this my fault. So I didn't bother. Ask your daughter, I said. Ask her what she said to me last night about genetics and children and her ex-boyfriend, then decide who's being cruel. Patricia's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Ask Meredith. She knows. I'm asking you. And I'm telling you to ask her. We stared at each other. The hallway was quiet. Somewhere on another floor, a door slammed. You're making a mistake, Patricia said finally. Meredith is the best thing that ever happened to you. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. Maybe, but I'd rather regret leaving than regret staying. She shook her head slowly, disgust written across her face. I always knew there was something off about you. Too quiet, too controlled. Walter warned me, but Meredith wouldn't listen. She thought you were stable. I am stable. That's the problem, isn't it? You wanted stable until stable started asking questions. Patricia stepped back like I'd slapped her. The boxes, she said, pointing past me. Those are Meredith's things? Yes, take them. You're throwing her out? She doesn't live here. She just left things behind. I'm returning them. Patricia looked at me for a long moment. I could see her reassessing, recalculating, trying to figure out who I really was beneath the quiet maintenance worker her daughter had inexplicably chosen. Fine, she said. I'll take them. But this isn't over, Joel. You don't just walk away from a Cole. I just did. She grabbed 2 of the boxes, stacking them awkwardly. I picked up the third one and handed it to her without a word. The ring is in there, I said. Top of the second box. Her face twitched, something between surprise and offense. You could have given that to Meredith yourself. I could have, but I'm done talking to her. Patricia turned and walked down the hallway, boxes in her arms, dignity barely intact. I watched her until she reached the elevator. She didn't look back. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing slowly. That was harder than the phone call. Patricia Cole was a formidable woman. Meredith had inherited her strategic mind, her ability to frame any situation to her advantage. But Patricia was more experienced, more ruthless. If she decided I was the enemy, she would make my life difficult. I didn't care. Let her try. My phone was still off. I left it that way. Whatever messages were piling up, from Meredith, from her family, from mutual friends trying to understand what happened, I didn't want to see them. Not yet. Around 6, there was another knock at my door. This time, I checked the peephole first. My brother Dominic. I opened the door. He was still in his bartender outfit, black shirt, dark jeans, which meant he'd come straight from work. He was holding a 6-pack in one hand and a bag of takeout in the other. Heard you had a rough day, he said. Where did you hear that? Sources. He walked past me into the apartment. Holy shit, you cleaned. Like really cleaned. Is that a vacuum line in the carpet? I was bored. You were spiraling, but healthy spiraling. I approve. He set the food on the kitchen table, Thai, from the place Meredith and I used to order from. The irony wasn't lost on me. Talk, he said, handing me a beer. From the beginning. So I told him. All of it. The jeans comment, the long night of cancellations, the phone call at the boutique, Patricia's visit, every detail I could remember. Dominic listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. He was the loud one in the family, the one who always had a joke or a story or a strong opinion. But tonight he just sat and listened, nodding occasionally, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he took a long pull of his beer. Damn, he said. That's it? Damn? What do you want me to say? You did the right thing. She basically told you she wishes you were someone else. What were you supposed to do, pretend you didn't hear it? Meredith thinks I'm overreacting. Of course she does. She's embarrassed. She got caught saying the quiet part out loud. Her mother thinks I'm cruel. Her mother thinks anyone who isn't useful to the Cole family is beneath contempt. Don't take it personally. I sipped my beer. The alcohol was helping, a little, taking the edge off the strange numbness that had settled over me. There's something else, Dominic said slowly. Something I wasn't sure if I should mention. Mention it. He hesitated. That was unusual, too. Dominic didn't hesitate. The ex she was talking about, Trent Holloway. You know him? He's a regular at the Overlook. Comes in a few times a week, usually with different people. Clients, he says. He's some kind of event promoter or brand consultant or whatever bullshit title those guys use. And he's been asking about Meredith. A lot. The numbness flickered, something sharper underneath. What kind of questions? Where she lives, where she works, whether she's still engaged. Dominic met my eyes. He started asking about a month ago, right around the time you guys announced the wedding date. I processed this. Trent Holloway, the genetically superior ex, the one Meredith apparently still fantasized about. He was asking questions about her, digging for information. Did you tell him anything? Hell no, I don't like him. Too slick, tips too small, always working an angle. But I noticed him. Dominic leaned forward. Joel, I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want to start trouble, but after what you told me tonight, maybe there's more going on than one stupid comment. You think they've been in contact? I think it's possible. He knows she's engaged, he knows where she works, and he's suddenly very interested in her life. He shrugged. Could be nothing. Could be something. I stared at my beer bottle, watching the condensation drip down the glass. Could be nothing. Could be something. Meredith's words echoed in my head. If we ever have kids, I'd prefer they have my ex's genes. Not a random ex, not a hypothetical better option. Trent. Specifically Trent. A man who was apparently still circling, still asking questions, still interested. I need to know, I said. Know what? If there's more, if she's been talking to him, seeing him. Dominic nodded slowly. I can keep an eye out. Let you know if he comes in, who he's with, what he talks about. I'd appreciate that. But Joel... He paused, choosing his words. Whatever you find out, don't do anything stupid. The Cole family has money and connections. If you go after them, they'll bury you. I'm not going after anyone. I just want to know the truth. The truth about what? You already ended it. She's out of your life. Why keep digging? It was a fair question. The smart thing would be to walk away clean. Take the pain, process it, move on. Plenty of people get cheated on, or almost cheated on, or emotionally cheated on, whatever this was, and they don't turn it into an investigation. But I wasn't plenty of people. Because if there's more, I said slowly, then she doesn't get to control the narrative. She doesn't get to tell everyone I had a breakdown and left her at the altar for no reason. The truth comes out, all of it. Dominic studied me for a long moment. You've changed, he said finally. The Joel I knew 6 months ago would have just walked away. The Joel you knew 6 months ago was getting married. And this Joel? I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the table. This Joel is going to find out what really happened, and then everyone else is going to find out too. Dominic raised his bottle in a small salute. All right then, I'm in, whatever you need. We ate the Thai food in silence. The green curry was exactly the way Meredith liked it, extra basil and all. I ate it anyway. Revenge was a strong word. I wasn't sure that's what this was, but I wasn't going to be the villain in someone else's story. If Meredith wanted to explain our breakup, she was going to have to explain all of it, and I was going to make sure she had to. The next morning, I woke up on my couch with a stiff neck and a headache that felt like penance. Dominic had left around midnight, taking the empty beer bottles with him like a good brother. The Thai food containers were still on the table, congealing into something that looked vaguely toxic. I cleaned up, showered, and turned my phone back on. 47 notifications, text messages, voicemails, missed calls, most of them from Meredith, a few from her mother, a handful from mutual friends who had clearly heard the news and wanted details, one from my supervisor, Phil, asking if I was coming in today. I ignored all of them except Phil, told him I'd be in for my afternoon shift. Then I made coffee and started reading the messages. Meredith's texts formed a timeline of emotional states. Confusion at first, then anger, then bargaining, then something that looked like acceptance but was probably just exhaustion. 2 a.m. Joel, please just talk to me. This isn't fair. 3 a.m. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about what I said, and I know it was wrong, but you're punishing me for being honest. 4 a.m. My mother says I should let you cool off. Maybe she's right, but I need you to know I love you. 6 a.m. I'm going to stay at my parents' house for a few days. I think we both need space. I scrolled past the rest without reading them. The pattern was clear. She was still treating this like a temporary setback, something she could manage with the right strategy. She didn't understand that I was done. The voicemails were more of the same, her voice shifting from pleading to frustrated to eerily calm. Her mother's voice was clipped and businesslike, demanding I call back immediately to discuss next steps. A friend named Carla wanted to know if I was okay and if there was anything she could do. I deleted them all. Then I opened my laptop and started digging. I wasn't a detective. I didn't have access to surveillance tools or private databases or any of the resources that actual investigators used. What I had was the internet, a lot of time, and a growing suspicion that Meredith's comment about Trent wasn't just a random thought. Trent Holloway, the genetically superior X. I started with Google. His name pulled up a LinkedIn profile, an Instagram account, and a handful of mentions in local event listings. He was a lifestyle brand consultant, according to LinkedIn, whatever that meant. His Instagram was public and carefully curated. Photos of rooftop parties, luxury events, beautiful people in beautiful clothes. He had the kind of smile that looked practiced in front of mirrors. I scrolled through his recent posts, lots of networking events, lots of tags for restaurants and bars and venues. One photo from 3 weeks ago caught my attention, a champagne toast at some kind of launch party. The caption read, "Great things coming with Cole Developments. Watch this space." Cole Developments. That was Meredith's father's company. I clicked the tag. It led to a corporate Instagram account with generic posts about real estate projects and community involvement. But there, in the tagged photos, was another image of Trent. This one from 6 weeks ago. He was standing with a group of people at what looked like a charity gala, and in the background, slightly out of focus, was Meredith. She hadn't told me about that event. I checked our shared calendar from that time period. She'd marked it as work dinner, boring, don't wait up. I screenshot both photos and kept scrolling. The pattern was subtle but consistent. Trent had been orbiting Meredith's world for months, tagged in the same locations, appearing at the same events, never directly photographed with her, but always nearby, like a satellite maintaining careful distance from its planet. Dominic was right. There was more going on here. Around noon, I got a text from an unknown number. No introduction, just a single line. Check her Instagram story from last Tuesday, the coffee shop post. I stared at the message. Someone was feeding me information, someone who knew what I was looking for. I had no idea who, and that made me nervous. But I checked anyway. Meredith's Instagram was private to non-followers, but we still followed each other. Her story highlights were organized by category: travel, food, work, wedding planning. I found the one labeled Daily Life and scrolled back to last Tuesday. There it was, a photo of a coffee cup in an artsy window seat, latte art in the shape of a heart. The caption was a simple coffee emoji, nothing incriminating on the surface. But I looked closer. In the bottom right corner of the frame, barely visible, was a man's hand reaching across the table. He was wearing a ring on his pinky finger, a thick silver band with a black stone. I went back to Trent's Instagram, scrolled through his photos, found one from a month ago. Him at a restaurant, hand raised in a toast. Same ring, same finger, same silver band with the black stone. Meredith had cropped him out of the photo, but she'd left in his hand. Amateur hour. She was so focused on hiding the face that she forgot about the details. I screenshot both images, added them to my growing collection. The coffee date had happened last Tuesday. I checked my own calendar. I had been on a late shift that day, covering for a colleague whose wife was in labor. I didn't get home until midnight. Meredith was already asleep, or pretending to be. She'd met with Trent while I was at work, while we were planning our wedding, while she was telling me she loved me and couldn't wait to be my wife. The anger came then, hot and sharp and unexpected. I'd been so focused on staying calm, staying analytical, that I'd pushed the emotion aside, but now it flooded through me like a broken dam. She'd lied, not just with the jeans comment, that was almost honest in its cruelty, but with everything else. The late nights, the work dinners, the strategic cropping of photos. She'd been building a parallel life while I planned our future together. I stood up and paced the apartment, trying to burn off the rage. My hands were shaking. I wanted to throw something, break something, make the physical world reflect the chaos inside me, but I didn't. I couldn't afford to lose control. Not now. Not when I was so close to understanding the full picture. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. There's more, but you need to find it yourself. Start with the building's hallway camera, your unit. I read the message twice. The building's hallway camera. Each floor had one, positioned to capture the elevator and stairwell entrances. Residents could request footage of their own doorways for security purposes. It was in the lease agreement. I'd never used it before, but someone thought I should. I left the apartment and took the elevator down to the lobby. The doorman on duty was a guy named Marcus, mid-50s, had worked here for a decade. He knew everyone and everything that happened in the building. "Joel," he nodded as I approached. "Haven't seen you around much. Everything okay?" "Long week. Hey, I need a favor. Someone might have keyed my car in the garage last night. Can I get the hallway footage from my floor just to see if anyone suspicious was hanging around?" Marcus frowned. "You report it to police?" "Not yet. Wanted to check the footage first, see if it's worth the hassle." He nodded slowly. The request wasn't unusual. Residents asked for footage all the time. Stolen packages, suspicious visitors, domestic disputes they wanted documented. "I can pull the last week for you. Takes about an hour to process. You want it emailed or on a drive?" "Email works." "You got it. I'll send it over this afternoon." I thanked him and went back upstairs. The anonymous texter had known about the cameras, knew how to access them, knew there was something worth seeing. Who was feeding me this information? And why? The obvious answer was someone who wanted Meredith exposed. A rival at work, a jealous friend, someone with their own agenda who saw me as a useful tool. I didn't like being used, but I liked being kept in the dark even less. If someone wanted to hand me ammunition, I'd take it. I'd just be careful about how I used it. Around 2, I headed to work. The building complex had a maintenance emergency, water damage in one of the ground floor units from a burst pipe 2 floors up. It was the kind of problem that required focus and skill, and I was grateful for the distraction. For 6 hours, I didn't think about Meredith or Trent or the mysterious texter. I thought about water pressure and copper fittings and the specific ways that old buildings fell apart. I talked to plumbers and property managers and the elderly woman whose ceiling was now decorated with brown stains. I fixed what I could and scheduled what I couldn't. By the time my shift ended, I was exhausted and calm. The rage had burned itself out, replaced by something steadier. Determination. I checked my email on the way home. The footage was there. A zip file from the building's security system, time-stamped and organized by day. I downloaded it to my phone, but waited until I was home to watch. The apartment was dark when I got in. I made a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter, then sat down with my laptop and started reviewing the footage. The hallway camera captured everything in a wide angle: my door, the 2 neighboring units, the elevator, and the stairwell entrance. The footage was time-stamped and motion-activated, so I could skip through the empty hours and focus on the moments when something happened. I started with last week, working backward from Tuesday. Monday, nothing unusual, just me coming and going. Sunday, same. Saturday, I paused. 3:14 in the morning. The elevator doors opened and a man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, moving with the confidence of someone who knew where he was going. Trent Holloway. He walked directly to my door, and knocked. Soft, rhythmic. The kind of knock you use when you don't want to wake the neighbors. The door opened. Meredith was standing there in a robe. She looked around, checking both directions, then stepped back to let him in. The door closed. I sat very still, watching the timestamp in the corner. 3:14 a.m. I had been on a night shift that Saturday, covering for someone with a family emergency. I didn't get home until 7 in the morning. Meredith had let Trent into our apartment at 3 a.m. while I was at work. The footage jumped forward, motion activated, so I was seeing only the moments when someone moved in the hallway. 5:47 a.m. The door opened again. Trent stepped out, adjusting his jacket. Meredith followed him to the doorway. They didn't kiss, at least not on camera, but the look between them was unmistakable. Intimacy, familiarity, the ease of people who had done this before. He walked to the elevator. She watched him go. The door closed. I checked the next few days. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, Trent again. 2:28 a.m. Same pattern. Knock, door opens, Meredith in a robe. He goes in. 4:15 a.m. He leaves. I kept going. Friday, nothing. Saturday, nothing. Sunday, Trent again. This time at 1:45 a.m. Same pattern. 3 visits in 1 week. All while I was working late shifts, all in the middle of the night. All captured on the building's security camera that Meredith apparently didn't know existed, or didn't care about. I saved the footage, made backup copies, organized them by date. This was proof. Real, undeniable proof. Not of the jeans comment, that was just words, but of the affair itself. Trent Holloway had been visiting my fiancée in our apartment while I worked nights to pay our bills. The numbness was gone now, replaced by something cold and sharp. Not rage, that had burned out earlier. This was something more focused, more patient. She'd made me feel like the paranoid one, like my instincts were wrong, like I was overreacting to a hypothetical comment about genetics. But my instincts weren't wrong. They were exactly right. I thought about calling Dominic. Thought about driving to Meredith's parents' house and showing them the footage. Thought about posting it all online and letting the world see who she really was. But none of that was smart. Not yet. The anonymous texter had given me this gift for a reason. Someone wanted me to find this evidence. Someone was guiding me toward the truth, and until I understood their agenda, I needed to be careful. My phone buzzed. The unknown number again. Now you know, but there's more. Meet me tomorrow. The coffee shop on Harper Street. Noon. I'll explain everything. I stared at the message. A meeting. With someone who had been watching me, helping me, manipulating me. It could be a trap. It could be someone who wanted to hurt me. It could be anything. But I was going to find out. I typed back a single word. Fine. The response was immediate. Come alone, and bring the footage. I put the phone down and looked at my laptop screen. Trent Holloway walking into my apartment at 3 in the morning. Meredith in her robe, the door closing behind them. Tomorrow I would find out who was pulling the strings. Tonight, I sat with the knowledge of what my fiancé had been doing while I planned our wedding. The apartment was very quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic on the river. Normal sounds, the sounds of a normal life. But nothing about this was normal. Not anymore. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Sleep didn't come for a long time. But when it did, I didn't dream about Meredith or Trent or the mysterious stranger who wanted to meet me. I dreamed about boxes by a door, about packing up a life that had never been real, and about what I was going to do when I finally understood the whole truth. The coffee shop on Harper Street was the kind of place that tried too hard. Exposed brick walls covered in local art. Vintage furniture that looked uncomfortable on purpose. Baristas with elaborate tattoos and the practiced indifference of people who considered coffee a lifestyle rather than a beverage. I arrived 15 minutes early. Old habit. My father used to say that being early meant you controlled the room. Being late meant the room controlled you. It was one of the few useful things he taught me before he left. I ordered a black coffee and took a seat in the corner, positioning myself so I could see both the front door and the back exit. Paranoid, maybe. But someone had been watching me, feeding me information, guiding me toward truths I hadn't been looking for. I wanted to see them before they saw me. The laptop bag at my feet contained everything. The hallway footage, the screenshots from Instagram, the timeline I'd been building, evidence of an affair that Meredith probably thought was invisible. At noon exactly, the front door opened. A woman walked in. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a professional ponytail. She was wearing a blazer over a simple blouse, the kind of outfit that said she'd come from an office. Her eyes scanned the room with the quick efficiency of someone used to sizing up situations. When her gaze landed on me, she smiled. Not warmly, more like recognition. She ordered something at the counter, a complicated drink with too many words in the name, then walked over and sat across from me. "Joel Ashford," she said. "You look exactly like your building ID photo." "You have access to my building ID photo?" "I have access to a lot of things." She stirred her drink, watching me over the rim. "My name is Paige Whitmore. I work at Cole & Associates, same firm as Meredith." Cole & Associates, Meredith's father's real estate company. The same company Trent had been tagging in his Instagram posts. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Paige took a slow sip of her drink, drawing out the moment. She was enjoying this, the power of knowing something I didn't. "Because Meredith Cole has been getting everything she wants for too long, and I'm tired of watching her win." That's not an answer. It's the honest one. She set down her cup. "Meredith and I were college roommates, best friends, supposedly. We got hired at her father's firm the same year. We were supposed to climb the ladder together. But Meredith climbed faster. Not because she was better, she wasn't. Because she was a Cole. Because every promotion, every client, every opportunity went to her first. And when I complained, when I pointed out that my numbers were just as good, I was told to be patient, that my time would come. And it didn't. It never does. Not when you're competing with the boss's daughter." Paige's smile turned bitter. "So, when I found out about Trent, I decided to do something about it. You've been feeding me information. I've been giving you the truth. What you do with it is your business." I studied her face, looking for the angle. Everyone had one. Meredith had taught me that much. "What do you get out of this?" "Satisfaction, justice, maybe a corner office if things go my way." She shrugged. "Does it matter? You wanted to know if your fiancé was cheating. I showed you proof. We're on the same side." "We're not on any side. You're using me to hurt Meredith. That's different." "Is it? You want her exposed. I want her exposed. The reasons don't have to match for the goal to be the same." She had a point. I didn't like it, but she had a point. "Tell me about Trent," I said. Paige leaned back, crossing her legs. "Trent Holloway, lifestyle brand consultant, which is a fancy way of saying he throws parties for rich people and takes a cut. He dated Meredith for 3 years back in her mid-20s, broke up because he couldn't afford her lifestyle. She wanted someone more stable, someone who could provide the future she envisioned. Someone like me. Exactly. You were the safe choice, the reliable one, the guy who would work hard and support her ambitions while she built her career." Paige tilted her head. "But Trent never really went away. He stayed in her orbit, showed up at the same events, kept the connection alive. And now? Now he's trying to get back in, but not because he loves her, because he needs her." "Needs her how?" Paige pulled out her phone, scrolled to something, and handed it to me. It was an email thread between Trent and someone labeled Investor Contact. The subject line was Cole Development Partnership. I read through the messages. They were professional on the surface, but the subtext was clear. Trent was pitching himself as a connector, someone who could bridge the gap between luxury events and real estate development. He claimed to have an inside track with the Cole family, a relationship that would open doors. The most recent message was from 3 weeks ago, and Trent had written, "Once I'm in with Meredith's family, the Cole firm will open every door I need. She's the access point, not the destination." I read that line twice. She's the access point, not the destination. "He's using her," I said. "Of course he is. Trent's business is failing. His event company hasn't turned a profit in 2 years. He needs investors, and the Cole family has the kind of money and connections he's been chasing his whole life." Paige took her phone back. "Meredith thinks she's rekindling a romance. Trent thinks he's climbing a ladder. And you're the obstacle that was in his way." "Was? You canceled the wedding. You removed yourself from the equation. Now there's nothing stopping Meredith from bringing Trent fully into her world." She paused. "Except you still have leverage." The footage. The screenshots. The evidence of an affair that Meredith's father knows nothing about. Paige smiled. Walter Cole is old-fashioned. He values loyalty, reputation, family honor. If he found out his daughter was cheating on her fiancé with a man who's only interested in her connections, he would not be pleased. I understood now. Paige wasn't just trying to hurt Meredith. She was trying to hurt Meredith's standing with her father. If Walter Cole lost faith in his daughter, Paige's position at the firm would improve. Corporate warfare dressed up as personal vengeance. You're playing a long game, I said. I'm playing the only game that matters. Office politics is just war with better lighting. I sat back, processing everything. Paige was manipulative, calculating, and had her own agenda that had nothing to do with justice or truth, but she was also right about one thing. We wanted the same outcome. Meredith exposed. Her perfect image shattered. The question was whether I was willing to be her weapon. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. I want you to do what you were already planning to do. Expose the affair, show the footage to the right people at the right time, let the truth do the rest. And if I don't? Then Meredith gets away with it. She marries someone else. Maybe Trent, maybe another backup option. She continues her rise at the firm. And you spend the rest of your life knowing she faced no consequences. Paige stood up, smoothing her blazer. There's an engagement party scheduled for Saturday. At the Cole family home, 50 guests, Meredith's father, half the firm's senior partners. She handed me a card with an address on it. The party was planned months ago. Neither you nor Meredith has officially canceled it, which means technically you're still invited. I looked at the card. The address was in a wealthy neighborhood I'd only driven through, the kind of place where the houses had names instead of numbers. Why would I show up to my own canceled engagement party? Because that's where everyone who matters will be, Meredith's family, Trent, who she's already invited as a professional contact, her coworkers, her friends. Paige smiled. And you, with everything you need to show them who she really is. She walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Trent has been driving past your building at night, 3 times this week. He's trying to figure out what you know and what you're planning. She looked back at me. Be careful. He's more dangerous than he looks. Then she was gone. The coffee shop's door swung closed behind her. I sat alone with my cold coffee and her parting words. Trent was watching me, trying to assess the threat, which meant he knew I was digging, which meant Meredith had told him about the canceled wedding, about my accusations, about everything. They were working together now, not just as lovers, but as allies, me against them. The thought should have scared me. Instead, it felt clarifying. Simple. I knew who my enemies were. I knew what they wanted, and I had evidence they didn't know I possessed. The engagement party was in 4 days. 4 days to prepare. 4 days to figure out exactly how to deploy the truth for maximum impact. I finished my coffee and left the shop. That night, I met Dominic at the Overlook after his shift ended. The rooftop bar was quieter than usual, a weeknight lull between the weekend crowds. We sat in a corner booth, away from the other patrons. You look like you've seen a ghost, Dominic said. I met the person who's been texting me. And? I told him about Paige, about the emails, about Trent's real agenda and the engagement party and everything else. Dominic listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. So this Paige woman, he said finally. She's using you to get at Meredith, and you're okay with that? I'm aware of it. That's different from being okay with it. Is it? She gave me information I needed. What I do with it is my choice. And what are you going to do? I'd been thinking about that all afternoon, running scenarios, considering approaches. The old Joel would have walked away, taken the pain, processed it, moved on. That's what reasonable people did. But I wasn't feeling reasonable. I'm going to the engagement party, I said. Dominic's eyebrows shot up. The party that celebrates your engagement to the woman who was cheating on you? The party where everyone who matters in her life will be gathered in one place. Her father, her co-workers, her friends, Trent. And you're going to, what? Stand up and announce she's been sleeping with her ex. Something like that. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. He took a slow sip of his beer, processing. You know this is insane, right? You're walking into enemy territory with a target on your back. The Cole family has money and lawyers and a reputation to protect. If you embarrass them publicly, they will come after you. Let them try. Joel, listen to me. Dominic leaned forward, his voice serious. I've watched Meredith work a room. She's good. Really good. She can spin anything, redirect any narrative. If you go in there half-cocked, she'll find a way to make you look like the crazy ex-fiancé having a breakdown. That's why I'm not going in half-cocked. I'm bringing proof. Proof that what? She had coffee with an ex? That he visited her apartment a few times? That he visited her apartment at 3 in the morning, multiple times, while I was at work. The building's hallway camera doesn't lie. Dominic sat back. The building camera. You have footage? 4 visits in 1 week, time-stamped, clear enough to identify his face. Damn. Dominic shook his head slowly. And you're going to show this at the party? I'm going to make sure the right people see it at the right time. The right people being her father, among others. Dominic studied my face for a long moment. I could see him weighing the options, calculating the risks. You're not the same person you were a week ago, he said finally. The person I was a week ago was planning a wedding with a woman who was sleeping with someone else. That person was an idiot. That person was trusting. There's a difference. Not in the real world. Dominic finished his beer and set the empty glass on the table. All right, he said. If you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. I'll be at the party. Working the bar, they hire out the Overlook staff for private events sometimes. I'll make sure I'm on that list. You do that? You're my brother, and besides, he grinned, I wouldn't miss this show for anything. We shook hands. It felt old-fashioned, almost ceremonial. 2 brothers making a pact. One more thing, Dominic said. The guy who's been driving past your building, Trent, he came into the bar yesterday. And? He was asking about you, specifically. Wanted to know if I knew where you lived, what your schedule was, whether you'd been in recently. My jaw tightened. What did you tell him? Nothing. Played dumb. But he's sniffing around, Joel. He knows you're a threat, and he's trying to figure out how big. Good. Let him wonder. I left the Overlook around midnight. The streets were quiet, just a few late-night walkers and the occasional car. I checked my mirrors constantly on the drive home, watching for headlights that followed too closely. Paranoid. Maybe. But Paige's warning about Trent had settled into my bones. He was watching, waiting, trying to figure out what I knew. Let him watch. Let him wait. By Saturday, he'd know exactly what I knew, and so would everyone else. When I got home, I found something waiting for me. A note slipped under my door, handwritten, no envelope, just 3 words in neat cursive. Leave it alone. No signature, no explanation, just a warning. I picked up the note and looked at it for a long time. The handwriting was elegant, almost feminine. Not Trent's style. Someone else. Meredith, her mother, one of her friends. It didn't matter. Whoever had sent it thought a piece of paper would scare me off. They didn't understand what I'd already lost. A wedding, a future. 14 months of believing I was building something real. You couldn't threaten someone who had nothing left to protect. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then I sat down at my laptop and started preparing for Saturday. The footage needed to be organized, the screenshots needed to be printed, the timeline needed to be clear enough for anyone to follow. I had 4 days to build my case, and when the engagement party arrived, I was going to prosecute it in front of everyone who mattered. Let them try to stop me. The days leading up to Saturday moved slowly, like time itself was holding its breath. I went to work, I fixed broken things, I smiled at residents who asked how I was doing and told them everything was fine. The maintenance coordinator's life continued as normal, even as I built something explosive in the background. Wednesday night, I organized the evidence into a folder, physical copies of everything, the hallway footage screenshots printed on glossy paper, the Instagram posts showing Trent's hand in Meredith's coffee photo, the timeline of his visits to my apartment, each one documented with timestamps and dates, the email where he called her the access point, not the destination. Looking at it all spread across my kitchen table felt strange, like I was preparing a legal case against my own life. Thursday morning, I got a text from Dominic. Confirmed for Saturday. Working the bar at the Cole party. I'll have eyes on everything. I typed back, thanks. I owe you. His response, you don't owe me anything. This is what brothers do. Thursday afternoon, another text from the unknown number. Paige. Trent bought a new suit yesterday. He thinks Saturday is his moment. Make sure he's wrong. I didn't respond. Paige had her own agenda, and I wasn't going to be her messenger. But the information was useful. Trent was preparing too. He saw the engagement party as an opportunity, a chance to solidify his position with the Cole family while Meredith's confused fiancé sat at home licking his wounds. He didn't know I was coming. Thursday night, I drove past the Cole family home, just reconnaissance. I wanted to see the battlefield before I entered it. The house was exactly what I expected. A sprawling estate in the wealthy part of town, set back from the road behind iron gates and manicured hedges. The driveway curved through landscaped gardens toward a 3-story colonial that probably had more bathrooms than my entire apartment building. This was where Meredith grew up. This was the world she came from. And this was where she expected to bring Trent Holloway as her new future. I parked on the street for a few minutes, just looking. Lights were on in several windows. Someone was home. Maybe Meredith herself, hiding out from the wreckage of our broken engagement. I wondered if she ever thought about what she'd said, if she regretted it, if she understood why those words had ended everything. Probably not. People like Meredith didn't regret things. They reframed them, justified them, found ways to make their choices seem reasonable in retrospect. I drove home and went to bed early. I needed rest. Saturday was going to be a long day. Friday passed in a blur, more maintenance calls, more normal conversations with normal people, more pretending that my world hadn't collapsed and been rebuilt around a different foundation. That evening, I laid out my clothes for the party. A charcoal suit I'd bought for a wedding 2 years ago, a white shirt, a dark tie. I wanted to look presentable, professional, like someone who belonged there. The folder of evidence sat on my nightstand, ready. I slept poorly that night. Dreams I couldn't remember, but woke from sweating. By the time my alarm went off at noon on Saturday, I felt like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. The party started at 6. I planned to arrive at 6:15, fashionably late, just enough time for everyone to settle in, get drinks in their hands, lower their guards. I showered, dressed, checked myself in the mirror. The man looking back at me didn't look like someone about to detonate a bomb. He looked calm, composed, maybe a little tired around the eyes. Good. That's what I wanted them to see. At 5:30, I got a text from Dominic. I'm here, setting up the bar. Place is filling up already. Meredith looks nervous. Trent is working the room like he owns it. Her father is holding court by the pool. I typed back, see you soon. At 6 o'clock, I left my apartment. The drive to the Cole estate took 20 minutes. Traffic was light. The evening was warm, the sky turning orange and pink as the sun began its descent. I thought about what I was going to say. I'd practiced it in my head 100 times, but the words still felt slippery. This wasn't a prepared speech. This was a conversation I was going to have with 50 people at once. The iron gates were open when I arrived. A valet took my car. They had valets, of course they had valets, and I walked up the curved driveway toward the house. Music drifted from the backyard. Laughter, the clink of glasses, the sounds of people celebrating something that no longer existed. A young woman at the door checked names off a list. When I gave her mine, she hesitated. Joel Ashford, she repeated, scanning the clipboard. You're on the list, but I thought so too, I said. But here I am. She looked uncertain, but waved me through. I stepped into the foyer and followed the noise toward the back of the house. The Cole family backyard was designed for events like this. A large patio surrounded a pristine pool. String lights hung between carefully positioned trees. White-clothed tables held elaborate food displays. A jazz trio played something unobtrusive in the corner. 50 people, maybe more, all of them dressed beautifully, holding drinks, engaged in the ritualistic small talk of wealthy people at parties. I recognized a few faces from Meredith's Instagram, coworkers, friends, family members I'd met briefly during our engagement. None of them had noticed me yet. I spotted Dominic behind a portable bar near the pool, mixing drinks with professional efficiency. He caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. I scanned the crowd for Meredith. She was standing near the food tables, talking to a group of women I didn't recognize. She was wearing a pale blue dress that looked new, her hair styled in loose waves that probably cost $200 to achieve. She was smiling, laughing at something someone said, playing the role of gracious hostess. Then her eyes found me. The smile froze. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. I held her gaze and smiled. She excused herself from the group and walked toward me. Her steps were quick but controlled. She didn't want to cause a scene, not yet. Joel. Her voice was low, strained. What are you doing here? I was invited, remember? This is our engagement party. Our engagement is over. You ended it. And yet here we are. The party no one thought to cancel. I looked around at the crowd. Quite a turnout. Your father must be pleased. Meredith's jaw tightened. You need to leave, right now, before this becomes a situation. A situation? Like finding out your fiancé has been sleeping with her ex while planning your wedding? That kind of situation? She flinched like I'd slapped her. I don't know what you think you know, but this isn't the time or place. Actually, I think this is exactly the time and place. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. Everyone who matters is here, Meredith. Your father, your coworkers, your friends. Isn't this exactly the audience you always wanted? Her eyes darted around the party, checking to see if anyone was watching our exchange. A few people had noticed. The women she'd been talking to were glancing our way with curious expressions. "If you do something stupid, I will make your life a living hell," she hissed. "You already did that. This is just the aftermath." I stepped around her and walked into the party. People were starting to notice me now, whispered conversations, pointed looks. The news of my arrival was spreading through the crowd like ripples in water. I grabbed a drink from a passing server, whiskey, neat, and made my way toward the center of the patio. Dominic caught my eye again, his expression asking a silent question. I nodded slightly. Not yet, but soon. I found Walter Cole near the pool, surrounded by men in expensive suits. He was a tall man in his 60s, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone who was used to being the most important person in any room. His handshake, when I introduced myself, was firm and assessing. "Joel Ashford," he said. "Meredith's former fiancé." "That's right." "I'm surprised to see you here, given the circumstances." "I thought we should talk, before you hear about those circumstances from someone else." Walter's eyes narrowed slightly. He was intrigued despite himself. Men like him valued information. They wanted to know things before anyone else did. "Let's take a walk," he said. We moved away from his group toward a quieter corner of the garden. I could feel eyes on us. The whole party was watching now, sensing drama they didn't fully understand. "My daughter tells me you had some kind of breakdown," Walter said, "that you canceled the wedding without warning and accused her of things she didn't do. That's one version of the story. And what's your version?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folder, handed it to him. "This is my version." Walter opened the folder. I watched his face as he flipped through the contents. The hallway footage stills, the timestamps, the coffee photo with Trent's distinctive ring, the email where Trent called Meredith the access point. His expression didn't change. He was too controlled for that, but his jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "The hallway footage is from my building's security system. The rest came from various sources." I paused. "Your daughter has been having an affair with Trent Holloway for at least the past month, probably longer. And Trent isn't interested in Meredith. He's interested in you, your firm, your connections. She's just the door he's trying to walk through." Walter closed the folder. His face was unreadable. "That's a serious accusation. It's a documented fact. Everything you need is in that folder." He was quiet for a long moment, looking at me with the calculating eyes of a man who'd built a real estate empire from nothing. "Why are you showing this to me? What do you want?" "I want the truth to be known. Meredith was going to tell everyone I had a breakdown, that I'm crazy, paranoid, unstable. I want them to know why I really ended the engagement." "And you don't care about the consequences? For her? For yourself?" "I've already lost everything I thought I was building with her. There are no consequences left that matter to me." Walter nodded slowly. He seemed to be making a decision. "Wait here," he said. He walked back toward the party, folder in hand. I watched him approach Meredith, who was now standing with Trent near the bar. They were holding hands, presenting a united front. They didn't know what was coming. Walter spoke to them briefly. Meredith's face went pale. Trent's smile flickered. Walter gestured for them to follow him, and the three of them walked toward the house, disappearing inside. The party continued around me, but the energy had shifted. Everyone could sense something was wrong. Conversations grew quieter. People glanced toward the house, wondering what was happening. I stood alone in the garden, whiskey in hand, waiting. 15 minutes passed, then 20. The jazz trio finished a song and started another. Servers circulated with champagne. The sun dropped below the horizon, and the string lights flickered to life. Then the back door opened, and Meredith came out. She was crying. Not the elegant, controlled tears of a woman playing victim. Real tears. The kind that smeared mascara and made your nose run. She looked like someone whose world had just collapsed. She walked straight toward me. "You bastard," she said. Her voice was loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "You absolute bastard." "Meredith, you gave him the footage? You showed my father? Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I showed him the truth. What he does with it is his choice." "The truth?" She laughed bitterly. "You don't care about the truth. You care about revenge. You couldn't handle that I didn't worship you, so you destroyed everything." "You destroyed it. I just made sure everyone knew." She stepped closer, her face inches from mine. For a moment, I thought she was going to hit me. "I loved you," she said. "I know I said something stupid. I know I hurt you. But I loved you, and you turned it into this." You were sleeping with Trent while we planned our wedding. That's not a stupid comment. That's a betrayal. Trent was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. 3 visits in 1 week doesn't mean anything. The email where he calls you an access point doesn't mean anything. I shook my head. You're still lying, even now, even when it's already over. The crowd had gathered around us now, 50 people forming a loose circle, drinks in hand, watching the drama unfold like it was entertainment. And then Trent appeared. He came out of the house looking rattled, his composure cracked. Walter Cole followed behind him, his expression thunderous. Joel Ashford. Trent's voice was loud, carrying across the patio. I should have known you'd pull something like this. Like what? Telling the truth? Telling your version of the truth. Twisting things to make yourself the victim. There are timestamps, Trent. Security footage. Your own emails. I spread my hands. What exactly am I twisting? He walked toward me, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. The desperation of a man whose plan was falling apart. You think you've won something here? You think exposing this makes you the hero? He stepped closer. You're nothing. You were always nothing. A maintenance worker Meredith was settling for because she wanted something safe. You were the backup plan, and you couldn't handle it when she realized she wanted better. Better? I laughed. You're broke, Trent. Your business is failing. You were using her to get to her father's money. That's not better. That's pathetic. His face went red. I saw his hand clench into a fist. Say that again. You're pathetic, and everyone here now knows it. He swung at me. I saw it coming, the telegraphed movement of a man who'd never been in a real fight. I stepped back, and his fist caught nothing but air. His momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed. Trent caught his balance and came at me again, grabbing for my collar. This time he connected, pulling me close, his face twisted with rage. You ruined everything, he hissed. No, you did. Dominic was already moving around the bar. 2 other men from the crowd stepped forward. Before Trent could throw another punch, hands were pulling him back, separating us. That's enough. Walter Cole's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Trent, get off my property, now. Trent struggled against the men holding him. Walter, listen to me. This is all a misunderstanding. Joel is manipulating. I've seen the emails. I've seen the footage. Walter's face was granite. You used my daughter to get to me. That's not a misunderstanding. That's betrayal. Trent's face crumpled. The charm, the confidence, the practiced smile, all of it fell away, revealing the desperate man underneath. Meredith, he said, turning to her. Tell him what we had was real. Meredith stared at him. The tears had stopped, replaced by something colder, something like realization. Was any of it real? She asked quietly. Axel, or was I always just the access point? Trent didn't answer. That was answer enough. 2 of Walter's friends escorted Trent toward the front of the house. I watched him go, his expensive suit wrinkled, his grand plans in ruins. The party had gone completely silent. 50 people standing in a garden, drinks forgotten, watching a family implode. Walter turned to me. You should go too, he said. You've done what you came to do. I have. Don't expect gratitude. You humiliated my daughter in front of everyone she knows. I told the truth. What people do with it is up to them. Walter nodded slowly. There was something like respect in his eyes, buried beneath the anger. Goodbye, Joel. I walked toward the front of the house, past the whispered conversations and the staring faces. At the door, I paused and looked back. Meredith was standing alone by the pool, her blue dress bright against the darkness of the garden. She wasn't crying anymore. She was just staring at nothing, processing the wreckage of her perfect life. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something like pity. Then I remembered the jeans comment, the midnight visits, the lies stacked on lies. I walked out the door and didn't look back. The valet brought my car around without making eye contact. Word had spread fast. By the time I slid behind the wheel, I could see people gathering at the windows of the Cole mansion, watching me leave like I was a storm that had just passed through. I drove slowly down the curved driveway, past the manicured hedges and the iron gates, onto the quiet streets of the wealthy neighborhood. My hands were steady on the wheel. My heart rate was normal. I felt calm in a way that surprised me. The explosion was over. The truth was out. Whatever happened next was out of my control. My phone buzzed as I turned onto the main road. Dominic. That was insane. Where are you? I typed back at a red light. Heading home? You still at the party? Just got dismissed. Walter shut everything down. Guests are leaving. Meredith is inside with her mother. Trent is gone. How did it look from your end? Like a bomb went off. People are going to be talking about this for years. The light turned green. I set the phone down and drove. By the time I got home, the adrenaline was starting to fade. In its place came exhaustion, the deep, bone-tired kind that comes after sustained tension finally releases. I'd been running on anger and determination for days. Now that it was over, my body was demanding payment. I parked in the building's garage and sat in the car for a long time, just breathing. What now? The question hung in the air like smoke. I'd spent so much energy planning the confrontation that I hadn't thought much about what came after. The wedding was canceled, the relationship was over, Meredith was exposed, Trent was finished, but my life was still here. My apartment, my job, my routines, everything that existed before Meredith would exist after her. I just had to figure out what that looked like. I got out of the car and walked to the elevator. The building was quiet at this hour. Most residents were out for Saturday night, living their normal lives. I envied them briefly. When I reached my floor, I saw something that made me stop. The door to my apartment was open, just a crack, but I always locked it. Always. I stood in the hallway, listening, no sounds from inside, no movement, just the soft hum of the building's ventilation system. Someone had been here, or was still here. I thought about calling the police, thought about going back downstairs and getting the doorman, but something made me walk forward instead. Careful steps, quiet breathing. I pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was dark. I reached for the light switch and flicked it on. Empty. Everything looked normal. The furniture in place, the kitchen clean, nothing obviously disturbed, but on the counter there was something new. A manila envelope. Thick, unmarked. I approached it carefully like it might be rigged to explode. Ridiculous paranoia, but the open door had rattled me. I picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. High quality, professionally printed. Me. Arriving at the coffee shop on Harper Street. Talking to Paige through the window. Me. Driving past the Cole mansion on Thursday night. Me. Walking into my building, getting my mail, taking out the trash. Someone had been following me for days, documenting my movements, building a file. At the bottom of the stack was a note. Typed, no signature. You think you've won? You haven't. This is just the beginning. I read the words twice, feeling the calm from earlier evaporate. Trent. It had to be Trent. He'd been watching me, just like Paige warned. And now he was sending a message. But what kind of message? A threat? A promise of retaliation? Or just the desperate gesture of a man who'd lost everything and wanted me to know he could still reach me? I checked the apartment more carefully. Every room, every closet, every window. Nothing was missing, nothing was damaged. Whoever had been here just wanted to deliver the envelope. I locked the door, checked it twice, then sat down on the couch with the photographs spread across the coffee table. The smart move would be to call the police, file a report, document the break-in and the threatening note, create a paper trail in case things escalated. But I wasn't feeling smart. I was feeling angry. He'd been in my home, my space, the one place that was supposed to be mine. He'd walked through my door while I was at his girlfriend's party, exposing his lies. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Not Paige's usual contact. I'd learned to recognize that one. I answered anyway. Joel Ashford. A man's voice. Unfamiliar. We need to talk. Who is this? Someone who knows what you did tonight, and what you're planning to do next. I'm not planning anything. It's over. Is it? The voice was calm, almost amused. You exposed Trent at the Cole party. You humiliated Meredith in front of everyone. You think they're going to let that stand? I don't care what they do. I told the truth. That's all I wanted. The truth. A soft laugh. The truth is just a weapon, Joel. You used it well tonight. But weapons can be turned against the people who wield them. What do you want? I want to offer you advice. Professional courtesy, let's call it. Stop now. Walk away. Don't dig any deeper than you already have. Deeper into what? Silence on the line. Then, Trent Holloway isn't just a failed event promoter with a pretty face. He has connections. People who invested in him when his business was failing. People who don't like it when their investments go bad. What kind of connections? The kind that break things when they don't get paid. The kind that consider reputation damage the same as financial damage. The voice paused. You cost Trent his access to the Cole family. That access was worth a lot of money to certain people. They're going to want that money back, one way or another. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the apartment's temperature. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. There's a difference. I have no stake in this game. I'm just someone who watches and occasionally offers guidance to people who might benefit from it. Then why call me? Because I was impressed by what you did tonight. It takes courage to walk into enemy territory and detonate a bomb. Most people don't have that kind of resolve. A pause. But courage without caution is just recklessness, and reckless people tend to have short lifespans. Who are you? Someone you'll never meet, unless you ignore my advice, in which case you'll meet me under much less pleasant circumstances. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time, processing the conversation. Someone was watching, someone besides Trent. Someone who knew things about Trent's business that went beyond failed event promotions and lifestyle branding. The photographs on the table suddenly seemed more sinister, not just surveillance, intelligence gathering, like I was being assessed by people who took that kind of thing seriously. I thought about calling Dominic, telling him about the break-in, the photos, the phone call. But what would he do? Worry. Probably insist I stay with him. Maybe call the police himself. None of that would solve the problem, and I wasn't even sure what the problem was yet. I gathered the photographs and the note, put them back in the envelope, and locked them in the safe I kept in my closet. Evidence, just in case. Then I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, watching the city lights and thinking about what I'd gotten myself into. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. Most of them were from numbers I didn't recognize. A few were from Meredith. One was from her mother. The rest were from people whose names I vaguely recognized from the engagement party guest list. Word was spreading. The story of what happened at the Cole mansion was making the rounds through whatever social circles these people inhabited. And apparently, everyone wanted to talk to me about it. I ignored them all. Around noon, Dominic showed up at my door with coffee and bagels. "You look like hell," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. "Thanks, that's helpful." "What happened after you left? I've been getting weird texts all morning, people asking if I know you, what you're planning to do next." "I'm not planning anything. I told you, it's over." "Is it?" He set the coffee on the counter and looked at me with concern. "Because you've got that look, the one you get when you're thinking too hard about something." I told him about the break-in, the photographs, the threatening note, the phone call from the unknown voice. Dominic's expression grew darker with each revelation. "This is serious, Joel. These aren't just hurt feelings anymore. Someone broke into your apartment. Someone's following you. Someone called to warn you off." "I know. So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know yet." He sat down heavily on the couch, running his hands through his hair. "Maybe you should get out of town for a while. Take a vacation, let things cool down." "Run away, you mean?" "Strategically retreat. There's a difference. If I run now, they'll think they can scare me off, that I'm weak. They'll keep pushing. And if you stay? What, you're going to fight back against people who break into apartments and make threatening phone calls? I'm going to figure out who they are, what they want, and then I'm going to make sure they understand that I'm not someone they can push around." Dominic stared at me for a long moment. "You've changed," he said finally. "A week ago, you would have walked away from all of this, taken the loss, and moved on. A week ago, I didn't know what I was capable of. And now? Now I know." He shook his head slowly, but I could see something like admiration behind the concern. "All right, if you're going to be stupid about this, at least be smart about it. What do you need?" "Information." The voice on the phone mentioned that Trent has connections, people who invested in him, people who might be upset that his access to the Cole family just evaporated. "Investors in an event promotion business? That doesn't sound like the kind of thing serious money gets involved in." "Unless the event promotion business was just a front, or a side hustle." Dominic's eyebrows rose. "You think Trent's into something else?" "I think a man who drives a luxury car, wears expensive suits, and lives like money is no object doesn't do that on the income from party planning, not unless there's another revenue stream." "So where do we start?" "You said Trent was a regular at the Overlook, that he was always networking, always working angles." "Yeah, he was there 3 or 4 times a week, minimum." "Who did he meet with, specifically? Names, if you can remember them. Types of people, if you can't." Dominic thought about it. "Business types, mostly. Suits, developers. A few guys who looked like they came from money. And occasionally..." He paused. "Occasionally some rougher-looking characters. The kind of guys who don't quite fit in at a rooftop bar." "Rougher how?" "Hard to explain. Just off. Like they were pretending to be something they weren't. Expensive clothes, but wrong. Too flashy, too deliberate." "Could you identify any of them if you saw them again?" "Maybe. I didn't pay that much attention. Trent wasn't exactly the only customer I was serving." But if I showed you photos, or if they came back to the bar, then yeah, probably. I nodded. A lead. Thin, but something. One more thing, I said. The night Trent confronted me in the parking deck, did you notice anyone else hanging around? Someone who might have been watching? Dominic frowned. The parking deck. When was this? Tuesday night, after my shift. Trent was waiting for me. We had words. He tried to intimidate me. You didn't tell me about that. There wasn't time. Things moved fast. He shook his head. I wasn't there Tuesday, but I can ask around. The building has cameras, right? The building has cameras, but whoever broke in last night managed to avoid them. The footage shows nothing. Professional, then, not just some angry ex-boyfriend. That's what I'm afraid of. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over us. Look, Dominic said finally, I don't know what you've stumbled into here, but I know you're my brother, and I'm not going to let you face it alone. Whatever you need, information, backup, a place to hide, I'm here. I know, and I appreciate it. But I need to do some of this alone. There are places I'm going to go, people I'm going to talk to, where having backup would be a liability, where I need to look like a man on his own, not a man with reinforcements. That sounds dangerous. Probably, but it's the only way I'm going to get answers. Dominic stood up, finishing his coffee. Fine, but check in regularly. If I don't hear from you every few hours, I'm coming looking. Deal. He headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. That voice on the phone, the one who warned you off, did they sound like anyone you recognized? No. Why? Because warnings like that don't come from nowhere. Someone knows what's going on. Someone has information they're choosing to share. He met my eyes. Find out who. They might be the key to all of this. He left. I locked the door behind him and stood in my empty apartment, thinking. The voice on the phone, the photographs, the break-in, the connections Dominic had noticed at the bar. There was a pattern here. I just couldn't see it yet, but I was going to find it, whatever it took. I spent the rest of Sunday doing research, deep diving into every piece of information I could find about Trent Holloway and his business ventures. His company, Holloway Hospitality Concepts, had a website that looked professional but contained almost no substance. 3 pages, generic descriptions of luxury event curation and brand experience design, a contact form that probably went nowhere. The company was registered with the state, but the filings were minimal. No employees listed besides Trent himself, no financial disclosures, no indication of the kind of revenue that would support his lifestyle. I dug deeper, property records, court filings, business associations, and then I found something interesting. 3 years ago, Holloway Hospitality Concepts had received a significant investment from a company called Granite Peak Holdings. The amount wasn't disclosed in the public records, but the filing suggested it was substantial enough to require formal documentation. Granite Peak Holdings. I searched for it. Another shell company. Minimal information. Registered in Delaware, which meant the ownership was hidden behind layers of legal protection. But Granite Peak had other investments, other connections. And one of them caught my attention. A real estate development firm called Cornerstone Properties, which had, according to news articles, been investigated 2 years ago for suspicious financing practices. The investigation had been dropped due to insufficient evidence, but the rumors remained. I followed the thread. Cornerstone Properties, Granite Peak Holdings, Holloway Hospitality Concepts. They were all connected, all part of a network that moved money around in ways that weren't quite legal, weren't quite illegal, but definitely weren't transparent. And at the center of that network, receiving investment money he couldn't possibly have earned through party planning, was Trent Holloway. The voice on the phone made sense now. Trent wasn't just a con man with a pretty face. He was a small piece of a larger machine, a machine that had invested in his access to the Cole family, an access I had just destroyed. No wonder someone was upset. I saved all the information I'd found, printed copies, made backups, created a file that would exist even if my laptop was stolen or destroyed. Then I sat back and thought about what I was going to do with it. The smart move was still to walk away. Take my evidence, hand it to the police, and let them deal with whatever financial crimes were hiding behind these shell companies. But the police would take months, maybe years. And in the meantime, whoever had broken into my apartment, whoever had called me with warnings, would have plenty of time to tie up loose ends, including me. No, I needed leverage. Something that would make them back off. Something that would convince them I was more trouble than I was worth. And I had an idea where to find it. Paige Whitmore, the woman who had started all of this by feeding me information about Meredith. She worked at Cole and Associates. She had access to the company's internal records. If there was a connection between Granite Peak Holdings and the Cole family business, she might know about it. And if there was, I had just found my leverage. I picked up my phone and texted the number Paige had been using. "We need to meet, tomorrow, same place." The response came an hour later. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Noon. Come alone." I set the phone down and looked at the pile of evidence on my table. The game had changed. This wasn't about Meredith anymore. This was about something much bigger, and I was right in the middle of it. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. I woke up early, too restless to sleep, and spent the hours before my meeting reviewing everything I'd gathered. The shell companies, the investment records, the thread connecting Trent Holloway to Granite Peak Holdings to Cornerstone Properties. It was a web, complex and deliberately obscured, the kind of structure people build when they have something to hide. I showered, dressed in casual clothes that wouldn't draw attention, and left for the coffee shop on Harper Street. The same place I'd met Paige before, the same uncomfortable furniture and tattooed baristas and overpriced drinks. I arrived 15 minutes early again, ordered black coffee, took my corner seat. Paige walked in at noon. The coffee shop on Harper Street was busier than the first time I'd been there. Monday lunch crowd, laptops and lattes, and people pretending to work while they scrolled through social media. The background noise was perfect for the kind of conversation I was about to have. Paige was already there when I arrived. Same corner table, same calculated expression, but something was different about her today. She looked tired, strained, like she hadn't slept well and was trying to hide it under extra concealer. I sat down across from her without ordering anything. "You look terrible," I said. "Thank you. That's exactly what a woman wants to hear." She stirred her drink without looking at me. "I assume you've been doing some digging." "I have." "And what did you find?" Granite Peak Holdings, Cornerstone Properties, a network of shell companies that invested in Trent Holloway's business when it should have been bankrupt, a connection to financial irregularities that the authorities couldn't quite prove. I leaned forward. "Sound familiar?" Paige's stirring slowed. She set down her spoon. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for." "I'm motivated. There's a difference." "Is there?" We looked at each other. The coffee shop noise seemed to fade into the background. "Someone broke into my apartment Saturday night," I said. "Left photographs of me. Surveillance shots, documenting my movements for days. Then I got a phone call warning me to back off." "I heard." "You heard? From who?" "From the same people who warned you. The network is smaller than you think. Information travels fast." "Then tell me what I'm dealing with. All of it. No more half-truths." Paige glanced around the coffee shop, checking for familiar faces. Whatever she was about to say, she didn't want anyone overhearing. "Trent Holloway is a frontman," she said quietly. "Always has been. His event business is legitimate enough on paper, but the real money comes from somewhere else. He's a connector, a facilitator. He introduces people who need things to people who can provide them." "What kind of things?" "Investments, partnerships, access to decision makers." She paused. "And occasionally, less legitimate services. The kind that don't show up on any paperwork." "Like what?" "Like helping certain developers fast-track permits through friendly city officials. Like introducing wealthy clients to investment opportunities that promise high returns with minimal documentation. Like creating the appearance of legitimate business activity for money that came from questionable sources." "Money laundering," she was describing money laundering. "And the Cole family is involved in this?" "Not directly. Walter Cole is old-fashioned. He built his business legitimately, and he's protective of the family reputation. But some of his junior partners aren't as careful. They've been accepting investment money from Granite Peak Holdings for years. Money that gets cleaned through real estate developments and comes out the other side looking perfectly respectable." "Does Walter know?" "He suspects, but he doesn't want to know for certain. Plausible deniability. As long as no one puts the evidence directly in front of him, he can pretend everything is fine. Until someone does put the evidence in front of him." Paige smiled thinly. "Exactly." I sat back, processing everything. The picture was larger than I'd imagined. Trent wasn't just a con man who'd seduced my fiancée. He was a small cog in a machine that moved dirty money through legitimate businesses. And Meredith had been his key to expanding that machine's reach into the Cole family empire. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "You said you wanted Meredith exposed so you could advance at the firm. But this goes way beyond office politics." "Because the situation has changed." Paige's voice dropped even lower. When I gave you information about Meredith, I thought you'd create a scandal that would damage her reputation and improve my position. I didn't expect you to tear the whole thing open. I didn't expect you to start digging into financial networks and shell companies. And now? Now the people who invested in Trent are nervous. They've put a lot of money into establishing relationships with the Cole family. Your little stunt at the engagement party just destroyed years of careful positioning. They're going to come after me. They're already coming after you. The break-in was just the first warning. The phone call was the second. If you don't back off, there won't be a third warning. There'll just be consequences. I felt the chill again, the same one from the phone call. So what are you suggesting? That I run, hide, pretend none of this happened? I'm suggesting you understand what you're dealing with. Paige leaned forward. These aren't people who care about reputation or social embarrassment. They care about money. You cost them money. They're going to want it back, one way or another. And what happens if I don't have money to give them? Then they take something else. Your peace of mind, your safety, your ability to live a normal life. She paused. Or they make an example of you, to discourage others from being as bold as you were. The coffee shop seemed smaller now, more claustrophobic. I was aware of every person around us, every potential threat. There has to be another way, I said. Leverage, something that makes me too dangerous to touch. What kind of leverage? The connections between Granite Peak and Cole and Associates, the financial irregularities. If I had documentation, solid proof, I could threaten to go public. Make it clear that hurting me would only draw more attention to things they want kept quiet. Paige studied my face for a long moment. That's dangerous thinking. More dangerous than doing nothing and waiting for them to come for me? Maybe, maybe not. She glanced around again. I have access to some records at the firm. Investment portfolios, partnership agreements, the kind of documentation that would be very embarrassing if it became public. Can you get them to me? Possibly. But if I do, I'm putting myself at risk too. If anyone traces the leak back to me, then make sure they can't trace it. She was quiet for a moment, weighing the options. Why should I help you? She asked finally. What's in it for me? You already told me what's in it for you. You want Meredith's position. You want to climb the ladder at Cole and Associates. If these people go down, if the financial irregularities become public, the partners involved will be the ones who fall, not you. Unless I get caught helping you. Then don't get caught. We stared at each other. Two people who didn't trust each other, bound together by circumstances neither had anticipated. I'll think about it, Paige said finally. Give me 24 hours. I'll let you know what I can get. That's not good enough. I need to move fast before they decide I'm too much trouble. Then you'll have to be patient. Some things can't be rushed. She stood up, smoothing her blazer. I'll be in touch. In the meantime, watch your back. And don't go anywhere predictable. She walked out without looking back. I sat alone at the table, my untouched coffee growing cold, thinking about everything she'd said. Money laundering, shell companies, people who made problems disappear. I'd started this wanting to expose an affair. Now I was caught up in something much bigger, something that could get me killed if I wasn't careful. But I couldn't walk away. Not now. Not when I finally understood the full picture. I left the coffee shop and walked to my car. The parking lot was half empty, Monday lunch hour winding down. I scanned the area out of habit, looking for anyone watching. A man was leaning against a black sedan 3 spaces away, mid-40s, built like someone who took fitness seriously, watching me with an expression that wasn't quite threatening but wasn't quite friendly either. I kept walking, keys in hand. Joel Ashford. I stopped, turned. The man pushed off from the sedan and approached. His stride was confident, unhurried, the walk of someone who was used to being in control. We haven't met, he said, but I've heard a lot about you. Who are you? Someone who's interested in how you're going to handle the next few days? He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. You've made some waves. Important people are paying attention. Is this another warning? Consider it an assessment. I wanted to see for myself what kind of man causes this much trouble. And what do you see? He studied me for a moment. Cold eyes, the kind that had seen things and learned not to care. I see someone who doesn't know when to quit. That's either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Maybe both. A thin smile. Maybe. He took a step closer. I tensed, ready to move if I needed to. Let me give you some advice, Joel. They're free of charge. The people you're dealing with don't play by the same rules you do. They don't care about truth or justice or getting even. They care about protecting their interests, and right now, you're a threat to those interests. I've heard this speech before. Then you should start listening to it. The woman you just met with, Paige, she's not your friend. She's using you, just like she's been using Meredith. She wants to climb the ladder, and she doesn't care who she steps on to get there. I know what Paige wants. Do you? Do you know she's been feeding information to both sides, playing everyone against each other to see who comes out on top? I felt something shift in my chest, suspicion crystallizing into certainty. She told Trent about my investigation. She told everyone about your investigation. She's been positioning herself to benefit no matter who wins. That's the kind of person she is. Then why are you telling me? Because I find you interesting. Because I think you might actually be useful, if you're pointed in the right direction. He tilted his head, and because I don't like Paige Whitmore. She's been a thorn in my side for longer than you've known she existed. Who are you, really? Someone who knows how this world works. Someone who can help you if you're willing to listen. Help me how? By giving you what you actually need, not just documents or dirt. Information about the people who are coming for you. Their names, their weaknesses, the things they're most afraid of becoming public. And what do you want in return? I want you to use that information, strategically, to damage the people I want damaged and protect the people I want protected. That sounds like manipulation. It sounds like the way the world actually works. You can keep pretending you're fighting for truth and justice, or you can accept that this is about power. Who has it, who wants it, and who's willing to do what it takes to get it? I looked at him for a long moment. This stranger who knew too much, who appeared out of nowhere, who was offering me exactly what I needed at exactly the right time. How do I know I can trust you? You don't, but you don't have many options right now. The people who broke into your apartment are getting impatient. Paige is playing her own game, and unless you find some real leverage soon, you're going to end up as a cautionary tale that nobody talks about. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Plain white, just a phone number, no name. Call me when you're ready to stop playing the victim and start playing the game. He walked back to his sedan, got in, and drove away. I stood in the parking lot, holding the card, feeling like I'd just been offered a deal with the devil. But what choice did I have? I drove back to my apartment, checking my mirrors constantly. No one following, at least no one I could see. The building was quiet when I arrived. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, moving carefully, listening for anything out of place. My door was still locked. The apartment was still empty. But I checked every room anyway, every closet, every shadow. Then I sat down with the business card and thought about what to do. The stranger in the parking lot knew things about Paige, things about the people coming for me. He was either an ally or another manipulator trying to use me for his own purposes. Probably both. But he was right about one thing. I was running out of options. The break-in had shown me that these people could reach me whenever they wanted. The phone call had shown me they weren't afraid to make threats. And Paige's revelation about money laundering had shown me the stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. I needed leverage, real leverage, something that would make them think twice before coming after me, and the stranger had offered to provide it. I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang twice. I was wondering how long it would take you. The same voice from the parking lot. I want to know more about the people who are coming for me, about what they're protecting. Of course you do. But first, you need to understand something. Once you go down this road, there's no turning back. You'll know things that make you dangerous, things that certain people would kill to keep hidden. I'm already dangerous. That's why they're coming after me. A pause. Then, fair point. Meet me tonight, 10 o'clock. The parking deck on Riverside, top level. Come alone. How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't. But if I wanted you dead, I could have arranged that already. I'm offering you a chance to survive this. What you do with that chance is up to you. The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked at the clock. 6 hours until the meeting. 6 hours to decide if I was making the smartest move of my life or walking into my own grave. I spent the time preparing. I copied all my evidence onto multiple drives and hid them in different locations. I wrote a letter explaining everything I knew, sealed it, and gave it to the doorman with instructions to mail it if he didn't hear from me by tomorrow morning. I texted Dominic. Meeting someone tonight. If I don't check in by midnight, call the police and give them everything I've told you. His response, what the hell are you doing? Joel, this is crazy. It's necessary. Trust me. I don't trust the situation. Let me come with you. No, I need to do this alone. Just be ready to act if something goes wrong. A long pause. Then, fine, but you better check in. I'm not losing my brother to this bullshit. I will, I promise. At 9:30, I left my apartment and drove to the riverside parking deck. The structure was mostly empty at this hour, just a few cars on the lower levels from people who'd parked for dinner at nearby restaurants. I took the ramp to the top level. Open air, no walls, just concrete and the night sky and a view of the river below. The stranger was already there, leaning against his sedan, waiting. I parked 20 feet away and got out. You came, he said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure I should have. Probably not, but here you are anyway. He pushed off from the car. Let me show you something. He reached into the sedan and pulled out a tablet, handed it to me. On the screen was a photograph. A meeting in what looked like a private room at a restaurant. 4 men sitting around a table, papers spread between them. I recognized one of them. Walter Cole. Another was Trent Holloway. The other 2 I didn't know. This was taken 6 months ago, the stranger said. A planning meeting for a development project called Riverfront Towers. On paper, it's a luxury condo development that will transform the industrial district. In reality, it's a washing machine. Dirty money goes in through Granite Peak Holdings. Clean money comes out through real estate transactions. Walter Cole is involved? Walter Cole is the front man, the respectable face that makes everything look legitimate. He may or may not know the full extent of what he's participating in, but he's definitely participating. I stared at the photograph. The man who had looked at me with cold eyes at the engagement party. The man who had told me to leave after I'd exposed his daughter's affair. He was dirty. What are the other 2 men? The one on the left is Victor Stanton. He's the money man for Granite Peak Holdings. Manages the flow of funds, decides where investments go. Very careful, very protected. And the other? The stranger smiled thinly. That's Marcus Webb. He handles problems. The kind of problems that don't have legal solutions. Marcus Webb. The name registered something in my memory. I'd seen it somewhere in my research, buried in corporate filings. He's the one who broke into my apartment. Probably. Or someone who works for him. Webb doesn't like to get his hands dirty unless it's necessary. I looked up from the tablet. Why are you showing me this? Because this is your leverage. The photograph, the meeting, the connection between Walter Cole and people who launder money and solve problems illegally. The stranger's eyes were sharp. If this becomes public, it doesn't just embarrass the Cole family. It destroys them. Their business, their reputation, everything they've built. And you want me to threaten them with it. I want you to have options. What you do with those options is your choice. I looked at the photograph again. 4 men, 4 lives that intersected in ways that were invisible from the outside. And now I had proof of that intersection. What do you want in return? I asked. I told you. I want you to damage the people I want damaged. Which people? Victor Stanton, Marcus Webb, the infrastructure that supports their operations. He paused. Walter Cole is a side effect. I don't care what happens to him one way or another, but Stanton and Webb have been thorns in my side for years. If you can bring them down, I'll consider us even. And if I can't? Then you'll probably end up dead, and this conversation will never have happened. I handed the tablet back to him. I need copies of everything. The photograph, whatever documentation supports it. Enough to make the threat credible. Already done. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. Everything you need is on here. Names, dates, transaction records, surveillance photos. Enough to bury them all. I took the drive. It felt heavier than it should have. One more thing, I said. Who are you? Really? Why do you care about taking down these people? The stranger smiled. A real smile this time, with something almost like respect behind it. Let's just say I'm someone who believes in balance. These people have had too much power for too long. It's time someone tipped the scales. He got into his sedan. Good luck, Joel. You're going to need it. He drove away, leaving me alone on the top level of the parking deck, holding a USB drive that could destroy lives, including possibly my own. I got in my car and sat there for a long time, looking at the river below. Tomorrow, I would use this leverage. Tomorrow, I would make the people who threatened me understand that I wasn't someone they could push around. But tonight, I just sat with the weight of what I was about to do, and wondered if I'd still recognize myself when it was over. Tuesday morning arrived with clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The USB drive sat on my kitchen table like a loaded weapon. I'd reviewed its contents 3 times during the night. Transaction records, meeting photographs, email chains that connected Victor Stanton and Marcus Webb to money that flowed through Granite Peak Holdings into Cole and Associates developments. It was enough, more than enough. I made coffee and called Dominic. "You're alive," he said. I was about to start panicking. "I'm alive, and I have what I need." "What does that mean?" "It means today I end this." I didn't explain more. Some things were better left unsaid until they were done. At noon, I drove to Cole and Associates. The building was a glass tower in the financial district, all sharp angles and corporate ambition. I walked through the lobby like I belonged there, past the security desk, into the elevator. Walter Cole's office was on the top floor. His assistant tried to stop me, but I was already through the door before she could call security. Walter looked up from his desk. His expression shifted from surprise to cold recognition. "Joel Ashford, I thought I made it clear you weren't welcome here." "You did, but I have something you need to see." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photograph. The meeting. Him with Trent, Stanton, and Webb. The documents behind them that detailed transactions that should never have happened. His face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter? What matters is that I have it, along with transaction records, email chains, and enough documentation to destroy everything you've built." "That's blackmail." "That's leverage. There's a difference." I set the phone on his desk. "Here's what's going to happen. The people who've been threatening me, Stanton, Webb, whoever else is involved, they're going to back off. Permanently. No more surveillance, no more break-ins, no more phone calls. I don't control those people, but you know them. You do business with them, and they care about protecting their investments in your company." I leaned forward. "Make them understand that I'm not a problem worth solving. If anything happens to me, everything I have goes public. To the press, to the authorities, to everyone who would love to watch Walter Cole's empire burn." He stared at me with hatred burning behind his eyes. But beneath the hatred, I saw something else. Fear. "And what do you want in return for your silence?" "I want to be left alone. I want to walk away from this and never hear from any of you again." I paused. "And I want Meredith to know the truth about the people her father does business with. What she does with that information is up to her. You're destroying my family. Your family destroyed itself. I'm just making sure I survive the aftermath." I picked up my phone and walked toward the door. "Joel." I turned. Walter's face was rigid with controlled fury. "If you ever threaten me again, I won't need to, because you're going to make sure this ends here." I walked out of his office, past the stunned assistant, into the elevator. The doors closed, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was done. 3 days later, I got confirmation. A text from an unknown number. Not Pages, not the strangers, someone new. "It's over. You won't be contacted again." That was all. No threats, no negotiations, just acknowledgement that I had won. I sat on my couch and stared at the message for a long time. Meredith called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was short, her voice hollow. "Joel, my father told me everything, about Trent, about the business, about what you did." A pause. "I don't know what to say. I don't know who I am anymore, but I wanted you to know. I'm sorry for everything." I deleted the message without responding. Some apologies came too late. Some bridges burned too completely, and some people needed to figure out their own path forward without my help. Friday night, I met Dominic at the Overlook. The rooftop bar was crowded, the city lights sparkling below us, the world continuing as if nothing had changed. He handed me a beer and studied my face. "So, it's really over?" "It's really over." "And you're okay?" I thought about the question. Was I okay? I'd exposed an affair, destroyed a business relationship, threatened a powerful man with evidence of his crimes. I'd walked into situations that could have gotten me killed and walked out again. I wasn't the same person I'd been 2 weeks ago. That person had been naive, trusting, easily hurt. This person was something else, harder, more careful, more aware of how the world actually worked. "I'm different," I said finally. "But yeah, I'm okay." Dominic nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now I go back to my life, fix broken things, keep my head down, try to remember what normal